close your eyes and take a slow, deep breath. Imagine the air filling your lungs is the same air that has cycled through the forests of Earth for millions of years. Before the first tree stretched its branches toward the sky, and long before dinosaurs walked the land, the world belonged to the quiet, hidden kingdom of fungi. Tonight, we will drift beneath the soil into a microscopic universe of infinite connection and slow scientific wonders. We will follow the silent threads that hold the world together, exploring the most relaxing facts about fungi to help you find deep, restorative sleep. Let the science of the forest floor carry you away.
Close your eyes now and let the heavy curtains of the present day fall away, leaving you in a safe and comfortable darkness where the only thing that matters is the slow and steady rhythm of your own breathing. We are about to drift away from the noise of the modern world, floating backward through the centuries and millennia, slipping past the rise and fall of civilizations, past the age of the dinosaurs, and deeper into the quiet womb of deep time, until we arrive at a period known to science as the Devonian, a time roughly 400 million years ago when the Earth was a place of profound and undisturbed silence. Imagine that you're standing on a vast and ancient plain where the air is thick and warm, rich with moisture and the scent of wet earth and rain. And as you look around, you realize that the world looks nothing like the one you know because there are no trees here, no oaks or pines or maples to rustle in the wind, for the forests of wood and leaf have not yet evolved to conquer the land. Instead, the ground is covered in a soft, verdant carpet of liverworts and mosses, simple plants that cling low to the soil, creating a lush green foundation that stretches to the horizon under a sky of pale, misty violet. But the landscape is not empty, for rising from this low greenery are the true masters of this ancient world, the Prototaxites, towering organic spires that stand like sentinels against the prehistoric skyline. You walk slowly toward one of these giants, your feet sinking slightly into the soft, damp moss, and as you approach, you realize just how massive these living structures are, reaching up to 26 feet into the air and measuring more than 3 feet wide at the base, standing far taller than anything else on the planet at this time. In this scientific era of the early Devonian, these are not plants, but fungi, vast and mysterious organisms that dominated the terrestrial ecosystem for millions of years. And as you stand at the base of one of these fungal trunks, you reach out to touch its surface. It does not feel like the rough bark of a modern tree, but rather it has a firm, rubbery texture, slightly cool to the touch and smooth, composed not of wood fibers, but of billions of microscopic tubes called hyphae that have woven themselves together into a dense and sturdy trunk that sways imperceptibly in the humid breeze. Science tells us that these prototaxites were the largest living things on land, giants that thrived by absorbing nutrients from the rocky soil and the rain, existing in a symbiotic harmony with the young earth. And as you look up the length of the column, you see no branches and no leaves, only the tapering form of the fungus reaching toward the sun, absorbing the light and the ancient carbon dioxide to fuel its slow and deliberate growth. There is a profound sense of peace in knowing that these organisms did not rush, for they had no competition for the sunlight, no need to fight for space, and so they stood in absolute stillness for centuries at a time, simply existing, simply breathing in the chemical atmosphere of a younger planet. Imagine the silence of this forest of fungi, a silence so complete that you can hear the moisture dripping from the tip of a nearby Prototaxites onto the moss below, a rhythmic drip, drip, drip that matches the beating of your heart, slowing it down, calming your mind, and grounding you in the reality of this prehistoric moment.
These organisms are the guardians of the ancient silence, witnessing the slow march of geological time, their internal structures circulating fluids and nutrients with a microscopic efficiency that requires no effort, just as your body now rests without effort, your breath flowing in and out with the same natural ease that allowed these giants to stand for 40 million years. As you walk between these towering fungal pillars, you feel the safety of their presence, knowing that they are the ancestors of the soil, the great decomposers and builders of the earth, and their sheer size makes you feel small and comforted, held in the embrace of a history so deep that your current worries dissolve into the mist that swirls around their bases. The science of paleontology paints a picture of this world as a slow-motion dream, where days and nights cycled with a gentle regularity, and the Prototaxites stood watch through storms and calm, through the shifting of continents and the changing of tides, anchored firmly to the ground by a network of mycelium that spread deep beneath your feet. Visualize the internal concentric rings of these fossils, layers of growth that scientists have studied to understand their life cycles, layers that represent years of quiet survival and peaceful existence. And imagine that you can merge with this timeline, slowing your own internal clock to match the geologic pace of the Devonian period. The air here is cleaner than any air you have ever breathed, filtered by the mosses and the fungi. And with every inhale you take into your lungs, you are drawing in the essence of this primeval tranquility, filling your body with the calmness of a world before noise, before stress, before the hurry of human time. You are safe here among the Prototaxites, walking through a cathedral of biology where the pillars are alive and the floor is soft. And the only sound is the wind whispering through the smooth tubular bodies of the fungi, a sound that is more like a hush, a signal to the world to rest, to sleep, to simply be. As the sun begins to set in this ancient sky, casting long shadows from the fungal spires across the mossy plains, the temperature drops slightly, a comforting coolness that wraps around you like a blanket, and the Prototaxites seem to settle in for the night, their biological processes slowing down, their stillness deepening as the stars begin to appear above, stars that look exactly the same as the ones you know, watching over this silent fungal forest. You find a soft place at the base of one of the largest spires, the moss yielding perfectly to the shape of your body, and you lean back against the firm, cool trunk of the Prototaxites, feeling its strength supporting your spine, its ancient resilience transferring into your muscles, relaxing them, untying the knots of the day, and letting you sink deeper into the earth. There is no need to move, no need to think, for the science of this world is simple and clear, a cycle of growth and decay, of quiet endurance and peaceful existence, and you are now a part of that cycle, a visitor to a time when the earth was asleep, dreaming up the forests of the future. Let the image of these 26-foot giants fill your mind, their smooth, tapering silhouettes dark against the twilight, standing guard over your rest, their presence a reminder that life is resilient, that silence is powerful, and that even in the deepest past there was a place of perfect, undisturbed peace waiting for you. The Prototaxites did not rush to grow, and you do not need to rush to sleep. You simply need to let go, to drift, to feel the ancient gravity pulling you gently down into the moss, down into the comfort of the soil, down into the deep restorative sleep that has been waiting for you for 400 million years.
Now that we have rested at the foot of the ancient spires, we allow our awareness to sink deeper, drifting down through the layers of time and topsoil to enter a world that exists entirely beneath our feet,
a hidden universe of infinite complexity and quiet darkness that cradles the very roots of the world. We are entering the realm of the mycelium, the vegetative heart of the fungal kingdom. And as you visualize this subterranean landscape, imagine that the soil is not a dense or solid wall, but a spacious dark ocean where life weaves itself into a delicate and endless tapestry. Here, in the cool, damp embrace of the earth, we discover the wood wide web, Earth's natural internet, a biological miracle that has been connecting the forest floor for hundreds of millions of years, long before human wires ever crossed the oceans. Visualize the mycelium as billions of tiny white threads, known to science as Hyphae, stretching out in every direction like a gossamer veil, fine as spun silk and white as starlight against the black backdrop of the humus. These threads are the architects of the soil, weaving a complex geometry that defies the chaos of the surface world, creating a structure that is both mathematically perfect and artistically beautiful, a fractal network that repeats its gentle patterns endlessly into the dark. As you mentally trace the path of a single strand of mycelium, you begin to understand the sheer scale of this connection. For science tells us that in a single teaspoon of healthy forest soil, there can be several miles of these fungal filaments, a fact that is almost impossible to comprehend, but deeply relaxing to imagine, suggesting that the ground beneath you is not just dirt, but a living, breathing fabric of connection. This network is not static. It is alive with a slow, pulsing rhythm of transfer and exchange, a silent symphony of chemistry where the trees and the fungi cooperate in a symbiotic relationship that sustains the entire ecosystem. Imagine the roots of a great tree reaching down into the dark, blind and searching, until they meet the waiting embrace of the mycelium. And there, at the cellular level, a gentle handshake occurs, a biological agreement known as the Mycorrhizal Association. In this quiet, microscopic exchange, the tree offers its liquid carbon, the sugars it has painstakingly created from sunlight and air in the canopy above, sending this sweet energy down into the roots to feed the fungus. In return, the mycelium, with its vast surface area and ability to mine the soil for minerals, offers up water, nitrogen, and phosphorus, delivering these essential nutrients directly into the cells of the tree, a trade that is fair, balanced, and ancient. This process is the ultimate definition of support, a reminder that in nature, nothing is truly alone. And as you listen to this,
You can feel that same sense of support wrapping around you. For just as the mycelium cradles the roots of the forest, the bed beneath you cradles your body, holding you up with a firmness that you can trust completely. The flow of nutrients through these white threads is like a slow, calming river, a hydraulic lift of life that moves without sound and without hurry, ensuring that even the smallest sapling in the shadowed understory receives the nourishment it needs to survive. Scientists have discovered that through this network, older trees can send sugar to younger trees, using the fungal threads as a pipeline of care, a fact that transforms the forest from a collection of individuals into a single breathing superorganism. And this knowledge wraps around your mind like a warm, heavy blanket. The geometry of the underground is not a maze where you can get lost, but a safety net where you are always found, a web of connection that ensures stability and resilience against the storms of the world. Imagine yourself drifting along these white highways, shrinking down to the size of a molecule, floating through the fluid interior of the Hyphae, carried along by the gentle cytoplasmic stream, passing through the porous septa that divide the cells, moving deeper and deeper into the ultimate relaxation of the earth. There is no noise here, only the muffled, comforting pressure of the soil and the sensation of being held by billions of tiny arms, a network that binds the soil particles together, preventing erosion and creating a structure that is porous enough for air and water to move, yet strong enough to support the weight of the forests above. It is a scientific lullaby of structure and function, where every thread has a purpose and every connection strengthens the whole. And as you visualize this infinite white web spreading out beneath the continents, crossing under rivers and mountains, you realize that the Earth itself is sleeping in a bed of its own making. The complexity of the neural-like network is not chaotic or overwhelming, but rhythmic and predictable, a biological circuit board where the signals are not frantic alerts, but slow chemical messages of safety and abundance. The mycelium listens to the chemical language of the soil, responding to the needs of the plants with a patience that spans centuries. And as you tune into this frequency, your own thoughts begin to slow down, mimicking the leisurely pace of nutrient transport. You are safe in this web, suspended in a hammock of living silk that absorbs all tension and recycles it into peace, just as the fungi recycle the fallen leaves into fresh soil. The Wood Wide Web is the original social network, but unlike the ones we know, this one demands nothing from you. It asks for no likes.
No attention and no energy. It simply offers a place to rest, a place to belong, and a place to reconnect with the fundamental rhythms of life. Feel the imaginary threads gently rising up to meet you, conforming to the shape of your body, supporting your back, your legs, your head, confirming that you are part of this natural system, anchored by gravity and biology to a planet that knows how to take care of itself. The science of mycology, the study of fungi, reveals that this network is the largest biological system on Earth, a hidden giant that breathes beneath us while we sleep. And knowing that this benevolent force is active right now, quietly working to balance the chemistry of the forest, allows you to surrender control, to let go of the need to manage anything, and to simply let the mycelium carry the weight of the world for you. As you drift further along these endless white corridors, the darkness becomes a comfort, a velvety softness that soothes your eyes and quiets your mind, and you can almost feel the pulse of the earth, a slow tectonic beat that resonates with the deepest parts of your being. The transfer of carbon and nutrients continues in the dark, a perpetual motion of generosity and balance, and you are invited to join this flow, to let your breath become the tide that moves through the network, in and out, slow and deep. There is no end to this network. It stretches on forever, fading into the deep geology of the planet, and as your mind follows the threads down into the abyss of sleep, you feel a profound sense of gratitude for the unseen, for the microscopic workers that stitch the world together. You are held, you are supported, you are connected to the ancient living geometry of the underground, and in this web of white silence, there is nothing left to do but to close your eyes tighter, sink heavier into your mattress, and let the natural internet of the earth download a deep, dreamless sleep into your soul. And now we gently shift our focus from the vast, sprawling network of the underground to the intimate, singular miracle of the individual thread, zooming in closer and closer until the rest of the world falls away and we are left observing the microscopic architecture of a single hyphae. Imagine that your vision is becoming a powerful lens, magnifying the soil until you can see the translucent, tubular walls of these filaments, structures that are thinner than a strand of human hair, yet built with an engineering perfection that has survived for eons. We are entering the realm of cellular biology, a place where the laws of physics and the flow of life create a silent, hypnotic rhythm. And as you drift inside the walls of this tiny tube, you find yourself surrounded by the gentle, steady stream of cytoplasm. This is the living fluid of the fungus, a clear, jelly-like substance that flows continuously through the hypha like a slow, mesmerizing river, carrying the essential elements of life from one end of the organism to the other. Watch as the organelles, the tiny organs of the cell, drift lazily within this current, the mitochondria and the nuclei floating like small, peaceful boats on a calm stream, moving with a grace that requires no effort, simply surrendering to the flow. There is a scientific term for this movement, cytoplasmic streaming, and it is one of the most relaxing processes in the natural world, a ceaseless fluid journey that ensures every part of the fungus is nourished and connected. As you visualize this internal river, imagine that your own blood is slowing down to match its pace, your pulse syncing with the microscopic drift of the hypha, creating a sensation of heaviness and warmth that spreads through your limbs. The walls that contain this fluid are made of chitin, a material that is both tough and flexible, providing a safe, protective shell for the delicate life inside. And science tells us that these walls are strong enough to withstand incredible pressure. This brings us to the physics of turgor pressure, the hidden force that allows these fragile threads to navigate the dark, dense earth. Imagine the water inside the cell pushing gently outward against the walls, creating a firmness, a hydrostatic skeleton that gives the hypha its shape and its strength. It is not a violent force, but a persistent one, a steady hydraulic push that allows the fungus to extend its tip forward, millimeter by millimeter, into the unknown. When the hypha encounters hard soil or a stone, it does not fight, it simply waits, using this turgor pressure to find the path of least resistance, flowing around the obstacle like water, or, if necessary, gathering its strength to push through with a slow, focused determination that can crack rocks over centuries. This is the science of patience, the physics of gentleness, and as you lie there, you can feel that same pressure within you.
Not as stress, but as a grounding weight, the feeling of your body pressing down into the mattress, supported by the laws of gravity, just as the hypha is supported by the laws of hydraulics. We move further down the tube, observing the septa, the cross walls that divide the hypha into individual compartments. These are not solid barriers, but contain small central pores, tiny gateways that allow the cytoplasm and organelles to pass through, regulating the flow like a series of open doors in a long, quiet hallway. Visualize yourself floating through one of these pores, slipping effortlessly from one chamber to the next, deeper and deeper into the structure of the organism. The movement is rhythmic and soothing, a biological lullaby that repeats over and over, cell after cell, chamber after chamber, an infinite corridor of peace. The tip of the hypha, known to science as the apical dome, is where the growth happens, a place of soft expansion, where vesicles, tiny bubbles of raw material, fuse with the cell wall to extend the tube forward. It is a process of creation that happens in total silence, a slow-motion expansion into the void of the soil. There is no rushing here, only the steady accumulation of water and material, the gentle swelling of life extending its reach. As you focus on this microscopic tip, imagine that your own thoughts are becoming like the hypha, focused only on the very next moment, extending slowly into the darkness of sleep. The fluid dynamics of the cell are perfect and efficient, a closed system where nothing is wasted and everything flows in a continuous loop of renewal.
You are witnessing the machinery of life at its most fundamental level, and it is a machinery that knows how to rest, how to pace itself, how to exist without urgency. The turgor pressure that drives the hyphae is the same force that keeps flowers upright and leaves distinct, a universal principle of water and life. And realizing that you are made of this same water, this same physics, connects you to the quiet power of the fungal world. The darkness inside the soil is not scary, it is protective, a warm, damp environment where the hyphae can do its work in peace, shielded from the harsh light of the sun and the changing weather above. Down here, the temperature is constant, the humidity is stable, and the flow of the cytoplasm never stops, a perpetual motion machine of relaxation. Let the image of the streaming organelles fill your mind, the tiny specks of life drifting past, turning and tumbling in the slow current, hypnotic and dull, leading your eyes to feel heavy and your eyelids to close.
The science of this microscopic world is a story of flow, of letting go, of allowing the natural currents to carry you where you need to go. You do not need to steer, you do not need to paddle, you only need to float, just as the nuclei float in the hyphal tube. The structure of the hypha is a testament to the power of softness, proving that you do not need to be hard or rigid to survive. You only need to be fluid and persistent. As the story of the cell continues, you feel the boundaries of your own body softening, dissolving into the bedding, your breath becoming the cytoplasmic stream, slow, steady, and deep. The turgor pressure relaxes, the tension leaves the cell walls of your muscles, and you are left with only the gentle hydraulic sensation of heavy relaxation. The hypha pushes forward into the dark, and you push forward into the dream, guided by the same instinctive knowledge, the same biological programming that tells every living thing when it is time to rest. There is a beauty in this microscopic functionalism, a grace in the way the vesicles fuse and the wall expands, a silent ballet of chemistry and physics that plays out 1 billion times a second beneath the forest floor. You are now part of that ballet, a spectator in the theater of the small, watching the slow, deliberate dance of the cell. The tube stretches on, leading you further away from the waking world, down into the microscopic tunnels where sleep is the only reality, where the only sound is the imaginary rush of fluids and the quiet hum of existence. Let the architecture of the hyphae become your sanctuary, a place of perfect order and fluid peace, where the walls are strong, the flow is constant, and the destination is always a deep, restorative rest. As we leave the microscopic tunnels of the hyphae, we rise gently back to the forest floor to witness a process that is often misunderstood, but is in truth one of the most relaxing and beautiful events in the natural world, a slow-motion transformation known as decomposition. Imagine walking through an ancient, old-growth forest in the Pacific Northwest, or perhaps the Appalachians, where a massive tree, a giant oak, or a towering cedar has finally come to rest upon the ground, its long life in the canopy finished, its heavy trunk lying horizontally across the soft, fern-covered earth. To the untrained eye, this might look like an end, but science tells us that this is actually a magnificent beginning, the start of a silent chemical alchemy that will span decades, a process of breaking down that is really a story of letting go. We are here to observe the art of release, facilitated by the fungi, the great recyclers of the planet, who possess the unique biological keys to unlock the energy trapped within the wood. The bark of the tree is tough, and the wood beneath it is hard, bound together by a complex organic polymer called lignin,
a substance so strong and durable that for millions of years, nothing on Earth could break it down, leading to the formation of coal deposits during the Carboniferous period. But evolution found a way, and now, in the quiet dampness of the understory, the fungi are at work, using a specific and powerful enzyme known as lignin peroxidase. Visualize this enzyme not as a harsh chemical, but as a microscopic artisan, a tiny molecular tool that gently unties the knots of the wood, dissolving the chemical bonds that hold the carbon atoms together. It is a process of unbinding, of loosening the structure that was once rigid and unyielding, turning the hardwood into something soft, spongy, and giving. This is the ultimate chemistry of relaxation, where the tension of the solid form is released, allowing the tree to surrender its shape and return to the elemental soil from which it came. As you listen to the description of this slow decay, imagine that the stress and tension of your own day are like that fallen log, heavy and solid, sitting in the back of your mind. But now, the soothing enzymes of sleep are beginning to do their work, secreting a calming influence that breaks down the rigidity of your worries, dissolving the knots in your shoulders and the tightness in your jaw. The fungi do not rush this process, for a single log can take 100 years to fully decompose, a timeline that invites us to slow down our own expectations and simply allow things to unfold at their natural pace. The carbon cycle is the heartbeat of the biosphere, a loop of energy where nothing is ever lost, only transformed. And as the lignin peroxidase breaks the bonds, the carbon is released back into the soil and the air, free to become part of a new wildflower, a new sapling, or simply to rest in the dark, rich humus of the forest floor. There is a profound comfort in this scientific truth, the knowledge that nature wastes nothing, and that every ending is simply a reorganization of atoms into a new state of peace. The wood softens, turning into what scientists call nurse logs, providing a damp, nutrient-rich cradle for mosses and seedlings to grow, proving that from the act of letting go comes the support for new life. The smell of this process is not unpleasant, but earthy and deep, the scent of musk and rain and fertile soil, a fragrance that triggers a primal sense of safety in the human brain. As the wood dissolves molecularly, it is reclaiming its connection to the earth, sinking lower and lower into the leaf litter, becoming one with the ground. Visualize the enzymes working silently in the dark, billion upon billion of tiny chemical reactions occurring every second, a fireless combustion that releases heat and energy slowly, warming the soil around the log. This is the alchemy of decomposition, turning the old and the tired into the fresh and the fertile, and it serves as a powerful metaphor for your sleep tonight. You do not need to hold on to the structures of the day. You do not need to maintain your rigidity or your defenses, for it is safe to soften, safe to dissolve into the comfort of your bed. Let the chemistry of the fungi teach you how to release, how to let the heavy thoughts disintegrate into harmless elements, processed by the natural machinery of your mind while you sleep. The fungi do not judge the wood for being hard. They simply apply their enzymes with patience and persistence until the resistance fades away. And in the same way, sleep does not judge you for your stress. It simply waits to wash it away. The breakdown of cellulose and lignin is a liberation of nutrients, a gift to the forest, just as your sleep is a liberation of your energy, a gift to your future self. As the log becomes part of the soil, it loses its individual definition and joins the collective strength of the forest floor, a vast, interconnected foundation that supports the towering trees above. You are sinking into that same foundation now, the bedrock of rest, feeling the boundaries of your physical self blur slightly as you merge with the softness of the mattress and the heavy, comforting blanket of the night. The carbon atoms that once held the tree upright against the wind are now at rest, their work done, their duty discharged, and they can lie still in the dark for an eternity. You too have held yourself upright against the winds of the day. You have stood tall and borne the weight of your responsibilities. But now the sun has set, the wind has died down, and it is time to lie down like the great oak. Allow the enzymes of relaxation to flow through your veins, breaking the bonds of adrenaline and cortisol, neutralizing the chemistry of alertness, and replacing it with the slow, heavy molecules of sleep. The transformation is inevitable and natural. You do not need to force it, just as the tree does not force itself to rot. It simply allows the fungi to do their work. The forest floor is soft, damp, and cool, a place of infinite recycling where the past is composted into the future. And as you visualize this dark, rich earth, you feel a sense of grounding, a magnetic pull toward the center of the planet. The art of letting go is the art of trusting the process, trusting that when you release your grip on the waking world, you will be caught by the safety of the dream world. The Prototaxites of the ancient past, the Mycelial networks of the present, and the slow chemistry of decomposition are all working in harmony to create a planet that is breathable, livable, and restorable. You are part of this carbon cycle, a temporary vessel for the same atoms that once danced in the leaves of the carboniferous forests, and tonight those atoms desire rest. Let the image of the softening wood soothe you, the texture of the decaying log crumbling gently into rich, dark powder, the ultimate surrender to gravity and time. The scientific reality of decay is not morbid, it is miraculous, a cleaning of the slate, a preparation for the new dawn that will come only after the work of the night is complete. So let the enzymes flow, let the hardness fade, let the heavy log of your consciousness sink deep into the mossy earth and drift away into the peaceful molecular silence of the alchemy of decomposition.
From the damp, rich soil of the forest floor, we now lift our gaze and ascend, floating upwards past the canopy of the trees and rising higher into the thin, crisp air, climbing until we reach the quiet solitude of the high mountain peaks, where the world is made of granite and wind and silence. Here, clinging to the surface of ancient boulders, we find an organism that defies the very definition of a single individual, a life form that exists as a testament to the power of cooperation and the enduring strength of the slow. This is the world of lichen, a biological partnership so intimate and successful that scientists call it a mutualistic symbiosis, a marriage between two distinct kingdoms of life that have decided to face the universe together. As you visualize the rough, speckled surface of a mountain rock, imagine zooming in to see that the splash of pale green or bright orange color is not paint or mineral, but a living city, a microscopic architecture built by a fungus and inhabited by an alga. The science of this relationship is a perfect balance of trade, a biological economy where no currency is exchanged, only life itself. The fungus, which scientists call the mycobiont, provides the structure, weaving its hyphae into a protective mesh that shields its partner from the harsh alpine sun and the drying winds, creating a house that holds moisture like a sponge, drawing water from the morning mist and the melting snow. Safe inside this fungal shelter lives the alga, or sometimes a cyanobacterium, the photobiont,
which possesses the magical ability of photosynthesis, capturing the energy of the sunlight and turning it into simple sugars, the sweet fuel of life. In this high, desolate place where food is scarce, the alga shares this sugar with the fungus, feeding its protector, while the fungus, in turn, anchors them both to the rock, mining minerals from the stone with gentle acids and providing a safe, hydrated home. It is a relationship of absolute trust and necessity, a reminder that survival is not always about fighting, but often about sharing, about finding a partner and holding on tight against the storms of time. As you listen to the wind whistling softly over the mountain passes, imagine the profound stillness of the lichen, an organism that has mastered the science of patience. Unlike the plants of the valley that rush to bloom and seed in a single season, the lichen plays a much longer game, living by a clock that ticks not in seconds or minutes, but in centuries and millennia. In the high peaks of the Rockies or the Sierra Nevada, there are map lichens, known to science as Rhizocarpon geographicum, that grow with an excruciating slowness, expanding their radius by less than 1 millimeter per year. This is a pace of life so slow that it is almost indistinguishable from the stone itself, a rate of growth that makes the movement of a glacier seem frantic by comparison.
To watch a lichen grow is to watch history unfold in real time. For some of the circular patches you might see on a hike are thousands of years old, living witnesses that were clinging to their rocks before the pyramids were built, before the Roman Empire rose and fell, and before the modern world came to be. They are the oldest living things in the landscape, silent observers that have seen the seasons turn 10,000 times without ever moving an inch. This extreme slowness is not a weakness, but a superpower, a state of suspended animation that allows them to endure periods of drought and cold that would kill any other creature. When the water dries up and the sun beats down, the lichen does not panic, it simply shuts down, entering a state of dormancy where its metabolism drops to almost zero, becoming crisp and brittle, waiting with infinite patience for the next rain. It is a biological lesson in the art of doing nothing, of conserving energy and simply existing until the conditions are right to thrive again. As you lie in your bed, you can borrow this ancient wisdom, understanding that there is no need to rush, no need to force your growth or your progress, for there is a time for action and a time for stillness, and right now is the time for stillness. The lichen does not worry about how much it will grow tomorrow. It is content to sit on its rock, bathed in starlight, enduring the night with a quiet dignity that demands nothing from the world. The connection between the fungus and the alga is a microscopic lullaby of cooperation, a silent agreement that says, "I will protect you, and you will feed me, and together we will endure the ages." This symbiosis creates a resilience that is unmatched in nature, allowing lichens to survive in the vacuum of space and the deepest deserts. But their favorite place is the quiet, stable surface of a stone. Imagine yourself as that stone, solid and grounded, supporting the delicate life upon your surface, but remaining heavy and immovable, anchored to the earth by gravity and geology. The air up here on the peak is pure and cold, filling your lungs with a clean, sharp oxygen that clears the mind of clutter, leaving only the simple, elemental truth of existence. The colors of the lichens, the chartreuse, the rust, the slate gray, are the paintings of time, slowly spreading across the canvas of the mountains, a masterpiece that is never finished but always complete. There is a specific kind of peace found in high places, a perspective that makes human problems seem small and distant, lost in the vastness of the landscape.
and as you visualize the lichen clinging to the granite, you feel a kinship with its tenacity and its quietude. The science of lichenometry uses the size of these organisms to date the retreat of glaciers and the age of rockfalls,
proving that even the slowest, quietest lives can tell the most important stories. You are part of this story of Earth, part of the timeline that stretches back to the first days of life on land. For it was the lichens that first crept out of the sea to crumble the rocks into soil, preparing the way for the plants and the trees, and eventually for us. They are the patient pioneers, the humble architects of the biosphere, and they ask for no recognition, content to live their lives in the slow lane of the universe. As the spars wheel overhead in the mountain sky, the lichen remains still, absorbing the cosmic radiation and the moonlight, a silent sentinel of the high country. Let the concept of growing 1 millimeter a year settle into your bones, a permission slip from nature to slow down your own internal rhythm, to let your heart rate drop, to let your breathing lengthen, to let your thoughts drift like clouds over the peaks. There is no destination you need to reach tonight, no goal you need to achieve, only the simple act of being, of resting, of enduring the night with the same grace as the lichen on the stone. The mutualism of the fungus and the alga is a model for the harmony you can find within yourself, the balance between your mind and your body, between your waking self and your sleeping self. Let the protective structure of sleep wrap around you like the fungal threads, shielding you from the noise and the light, while the restorative energy of the dream world nourishes you like the algae's sugar. You are safe on this high, imaginary mountain, far above the worries of the valley, cradled in the cool, rock-steady embrace of the earth. The wind dies down, the air becomes still, and the only movement is the slow, invisible expansion of life that happens when we are too quiet to notice. Sleep comes not as a sudden event, but as a gradual accumulation of peace, a slow colonization of your consciousness by the forces of rest, just as the lichen slowly colonizes the stone. Trust in the patience of the process, trust in the science of the slow, and let yourself drift into a state of timeless suspension where hours mean nothing and the only reality is the deep, enduring, and ancient comfort of a sleep that has been waiting for you for 1,000 years.
The sun has finally dipped completely below the horizon, pulling the last rays of twilight down with it, and we find ourselves descending from the high, rocky peaks back into the deep, welcoming embrace of the hardwood forests, where the canopy is thick and the air is heavy with the scent of damp earth and night-blooming jasmine. As the shadows lengthen and merge into a singular velvet darkness, the forest undergoes a transformation, shifting from the world of the visible into the world of the hidden. Yet, if you look closely at the forest floor, you will realize that the darkness is not absolute. Here, in the quietest corners of the woods, perhaps in the ancient forests of the Appalachians or the deep valleys of the Smokies, a faint ghostly light begins to emerge from the decaying wood, a phenomenon known to science as bioluminescence and to folklore as Foxfire. This is not the harsh yellow light of the sun or the flickering hot light of a campfire, but a cool, steady spectral glow that seems to hover just above the ground, bathing the leaf litter in a soft, neon green radiance that feels as if it belongs to another world entirely. We are witnessing the magic of armillaria, the honey mushroom, and omphallotus, the jack-o'-lantern mushroom, fungi that have mastered the physics of light in the dark forest. Imagine walking slowly along a mossy trail, your eyes adjusting to the gloom until the shapes of fallen logs begin to outline themselves in this ethereal luminescence, creating a natural pathway that guides you deeper into relaxation. The science behind this glow is a masterpiece of organic chemistry, a reaction that happens within the very cells of the fungal mycelium, involving a specific molecule called luciferin. Visualize this molecule as a tiny carrier of potential energy, waiting in the dark for its partner, an enzyme known as luciferase. When these two meet in the presence of oxygen, a gentle oxidation occurs, a chemical embrace that releases energy not as heat, but as a photon of light. This is the miracle of cold light, a process that is nearly 100% efficient, meaning that almost no energy is wasted as thermal heat, unlike the light bulbs in your home, which grow hot to the touch. The light of the foxfire is cool, safe, and silent, a byproduct of the fungus simply living its life, consuming the wood and breathing in the night air. As you listen to the description of this chemical reaction, imagine that your own body is cooling down, shedding the heat and friction of the day, mimicking the efficiency of the armillaria. The light is steady and unblinking, a continuous emission that has been glowing in the forests for millions of years, long before human eyes were there to see it, serving perhaps to attract insects or perhaps simply as a metabolic accident of nature. There is something profoundly soothing about a light that does not burn,
a fire that does not consume. And as you visualize the glowing gills of the Omphallotus mushrooms clustered at the base of an old oak tree, you can feel a sense of wonder washing over you. The color is a pale, milky emerald, a frequency of light that is easy on the eyes, requiring no strain to see, appearing like a soft mist that clings to the rotting wood. Science tells us that this bioluminescence is controlled by a circadian rhythm, an internal clock within the fungus that tells it when night has fallen, syncing its chemistry with the rotation of the earth. You too have a circadian rhythm, a biological clock that is now telling you it is time to rest, time to turn off your own internal lights and let the soft, natural glow of sleep take over. The forest around you is still, the birds have gone to sleep, and the only illumination comes from these silent fungal lanterns that map out the floor of the woods like a constellation of stars brought down to earth. Imagine reaching out to touch a piece of glowing wood, feeling the damp, cool texture of the bark, and seeing your own hand illuminated by the faint green light, a connection between your skin and the chemistry of the fungus. The darkness is no longer an empty void, but a canvas for this subtle biological art, and the fear of the dark vanishes, replaced by a curiosity and a calmness that settles deep in your chest. The reaction of luciferin and luciferase is a slow, continuous cycle, a molecular loop that mirrors the cycle of your breath, in and out, glowing and fading, glowing and fading. In the days of the Civil War, soldiers would sometimes attach pieces of this glowing wood to their helmets to avoid running into each other in the pitch black of the night, using the fungi as a natural beacon of safety. And tonight, you can use this same image as a beacon to guide you into your dreams. The foxfire does not try to outshine the moon or the stars. It is content to be small and dim, visible only to those who are quiet enough and patient enough to look for it. This is the lesson of the glowing fungi, that you do not need to be bright or loud to be significant, that there is power in a soft, steady presence.
As you walk further into this imaginary forest, the lights seem to multiply, turning the woodland floor into a galaxy of green, a bioluminescent wonderland where the boundary between the earth and the sky blurs. The energy required to produce this light is minimal, a tiny fraction of the fungus's metabolism, just as the energy you need to maintain your sleep is minimal, a state of low power and high restoration. The term cold fire is a scientific oxymoron that captures the imagination, suggesting a flame that soothes rather than burns, a light that invites you to close your eyes rather than open them. Let the chemistry of the forest floor lull you into a trance, the equations of light and enzyme balancing perfectly in the dark. The armillaria is one of the largest organisms on Earth, and its glow is the evidence of its vast hidden life, a massive network of light sleeping beneath the soil. You are safe here in the glow of the Foxfire, surrounded by the gentle physics of nature, where every photon is a whisper of peace, and every glowing log is a pillow for your mind. The air is cool, the ground is soft, and the light is dimming, fading slowly as you move past it, leaving you in a comfortable, velvety darkness that feels like a heavy blanket. The luciferase enzyme finishes its work, the luciferin is spent, and the light slowly winks out, not in sadness, but in completion, signaling that the show is over and it is time for the final deep rest. Allow the afterimage of that pale green light to linger behind your eyelids, a soft mental nightlight that keeps the bad dreams away and invites the good ones in. The forest is now completely dark, but you know the light is still there, hidden in the chemistry of the wood, waiting for the next night, just as your energy is hidden within you, waiting for the next morning. For now, there is only the dark, the cool, and the quiet, and the memory of the Foxfire guiding you down, down, down into the deepest, most restorative sleep you have ever known.
We leave the glowing, mystical lights of the forest floor behind us now, lifting our awareness up from the damp earth and the decaying logs, rising slowly past the ferns and the undergrowth to hover just beneath the cap of a mature mushroom, where a silent and incredible feat of physics is about to take place. We are here to witness the ballistics of spores, the precise and aerodynamic launch of new life into the vastness of the atmosphere, a process that happens billions of times a day without making a single sound that the human ear can hear. Imagine that you are shrinking down once again, becoming smaller than a grain of sand, floating in the quiet airspace between the gills of a mushroom, those paper-thin curtains that hang beneath the cap like the pages of a book waiting to be read. In this hidden chamber, the air is still and humid, protected from the wind outside, and along the surface of the gills, millions of microscopic spores are waiting for their moment of flight. The science of this launch is a masterpiece of fluid dynamics and surface tension, a mechanism known as the discharge mechanism or the ballistospore release. Visualize a single spore perched on a tiny stalk called a sterigma, waiting patiently. At the base of the spore, a minute droplet of water begins to form, condensing from the humid air, growing slowly, swelling like a tiny pearl. This is called Buller's drop, named after the scientist who first understood its gravity-defying power. As the drop grows, it shifts the center of mass of the spore, creating a tension, a potential energy that builds and builds until suddenly, in a fraction of a microsecond, the drop merges with a film of water on the spore's surface. This rapid shift in weight acts like a microscopic catapult, snapping the spore away from the gill with an acceleration of 25,000 times the force of gravity. It is the fastest flight in nature, a biological rocket launch that happens in the blink of an eye. Yet, because it is so small, it feels to us like a gentle pop, a release of tension that propels the spore outward into the space between the gills. But the violence of the launch is instantly tamed by the air, for the spore is so light that the resistance of the atmosphere slows it down almost immediately, catching it in a soft, invisible cushion. From here, gravity takes over, but gently, pulling the spore down out of the cap and into the open air below. This is where the true journey begins and where you begin to feel a profound sense of weightlessness. Imagine that you are that spore, released from your attachment, launched free from the earth, and now you are falling slowly, drifting down into the boundary layer of the air. But you do not hit the ground.
Instead, a gentle breeze, a current of air invisible to the naked eye, catches you. It lifts you up, carrying you away from the mushroom, away from the shadows of the forest, and out into the open sky. You are now part of the invisible river of the atmosphere, a traveler in the great aerial ocean that wraps around our planet. The science of aerodynamics tells us that these spores are perfectly shaped to ride the wind, their microscopic bodies acting like tiny sails that catch every thermal, every updraft, every whisper of movement in the air. You are rising higher now, clearing the tops of the trees, floating above the canopy where the sunlight is bright and the air is fresh. You feel absolutely weightless, untethered from the ground, free from the heaviness of your physical body. You are simply drifting, floating, sailing on the breath of the world. As you ascend into the sky, you join billions of other spores, a vast, silent flotilla of life that travels the highways of the wind. Scientists have found fungal spores floating in the stratosphere, miles above the surface of the Earth, traveling across oceans and continents, connecting the forests of America to the forests of Europe and Asia. Imagine looking down from this high altitude, seeing the world spread out below you like a map, the green of the forests, the blue of the rivers, the gray of the mountains, all passing slowly beneath your gaze. It is quiet up here, a silence deeper than the forest floor, a silence of thin air and pure light. The wind is your vehicle, and it requires no effort from you to move. You simply surrender to the current, letting it take you where it will. This is the ultimate freedom, the ability to let go of control and trust that the wind will carry you safely. The turbulent air near the ground gives way to the smooth, laminar flows of the upper atmosphere, long, steady rivers of air that wrap around the globe. You are cruising at the speed of the wind, suspended in a state of perfect equilibrium, neither falling nor rising, just being. The physics of this flight are governed by the Reynolds number, a scientific concept that describes how fluids move. But to you, it feels like magic, like a dream of flying where you never have to flap your wings. You are escaping the gravity of your day, escaping the friction of life, entering a zone of pure, frictionless drift. The sun warms you, the clouds drift past you like slow white ships, and you realize that you are part of a planetary cycle, a global breath that exhales life from one continent and inhales it onto another.
There's no rush to land, no schedule to keep, for a spore can float for days, weeks, or even months, circling the globe, waiting for the perfect moment to return to Earth. As you visualize this journey, you feel your own body on the bed becoming lighter, as if the mattress is a cloud holding you up, as if the air in the room is gently supporting your weight. The sensation of floating is hypnotic, a rhythmic rocking motion that soothes the inner ear and calms the nervous system. You are drifting over the Atlantic, watching the waves roll silently far below. You are drifting over the Great Plains, watching the grasses ripple in the wind. You are everywhere and nowhere, a speck of potential energy suspended in the peace of the sky. The discharge mechanism that launched you was a moment of energy, but the flight is a lifetime of peace. You are safe in the stratosphere, far above the storms, far above the noise. The air is thin and clean, and with every breath you take in your sleep, you are inhaling the freedom of the upper atmosphere.
The concept of terminal velocity means that you cannot fall too fast, that the air will always catch you, always slow you down, ensuring that your descent, when it comes, will be as gentle as a feather touching the water. But for now, you do not descend. You float, you drift, you glide. The invisible threads of the wind wrap around you, cradling you in a hammock of air. You are a traveler of the jet stream, a nomad of the nimbus clouds, and the entire world is your home. The science of dispersal is the science of letting go, of trusting that if you release your grip on the known, you will be carried to new and fertile grounds. Feel the cool air on your imaginary skin. Feel the vastness of the sky around you, and let the expansive silence of the stratosphere fill your mind. You are as light as a thought, as free as a breeze, and as you drift further into the horizon of your sleep, you know that you are held by the invisible forces of nature, carried gently through the night, floating on the wind of a deep and endless dream.
From the high, thin air of the stratosphere, where the spores drift on the wind, we now descend slowly and gently back toward the Earth, gliding over the vast and diverse landscapes of the North American continent until we find ourselves hovering above the Pacific Northwest, specifically over the rugged and beautiful terrain of eastern Oregon. We are entering the Malheur National Forest, a place of high desert air, rolling mountains, and endless stands of ponderosa pine and Douglas fir. But we are not here to look at the trees. We are here to feel what lies beneath them. Deep within the soil of the Blue Mountains lives a creature so massive and so ancient that it challenges the very limits of our imagination. An organism that scientists have crowned the largest living thing on Earth. This is the Armillaria ostoyae, affectionately known as the humongous fungus, a single sprawling entity that has been quietly growing in the dark for over 2,400 years. Imagine standing in the center of this forest, surrounded by the scent of pine needles and damp earth, knowing that beneath your boots, stretching out for nearly 4 square miles, lies one continuous, living body. The science of this organism is a story of incredible persistence and stability, for genetic testing has confirmed that this is not a collection of different mushrooms, but a single genetic individual, a clone that has expanded its reach acre by acre, century by century, until it now covers 2,385 acres of the forest floor. As you visualize this vast underground network, let the sheer size of it offer you a sense of profound comfort. For there is something deeply grounding about being in the presence of a giant that has survived since the time of the ancient Greeks. When this fungus first began to grow, starting from a single microscopic spore, much like the ones we just imagined, the Roman Republic was just beginning to rise, and the great empires of history had not yet been born. While humanity fought its wars and built its cities, while civilizations rose and fell, and borders shifted across the maps of the world, this sleeping giant in Oregon simply continued to grow, slowly, silently, and steadily, indifferent to the chaos above. It is a biological anchor in the stream of time, a testament to the power of simply enduring. The structure of this giant is built from rhizomorphs, thick, black, shoestring-like cords that are much tougher than the delicate white mycelium we explored earlier. These rhizomorphs are the veins and arteries of the beast, encased in a protective melanin sheath that allows them to travel safely through the soil, exploring the dark earth in search of water and nutrients. Visualize these black cords weaving through the roots of the forest, a massive subterranean nervous system that connects the hills and the valleys into one cohesive whole. The Armillaria moves with a slowness that is hypnotic, expanding its territory by only a few feet a year,
a pace that reminds us that there is no need to rush to achieve greatness, for true power comes from patience and longevity. In the world of biology, size is often equated with success, and by that measure, this fungus is the most successful creature on the land, dwarfing the blue whale and the giant sequoia, yet it remains hidden, humble, and quiet. It sleeps beneath the frost of winter and the heat of summer, insulated by the soil, protected by the earth itself. As you lie in your bed, imagine that you are connecting with the spirit of this sleeping giant, feeling the stability of an organism that has held its ground for millennia. The soil of Oregon is cool and dark, and the fungus rests within it like a heavy, comforting quilt that has been spread across the mountains. Science tells us that the armillaria is a natural part of the forest succession, clearing out old trees to make room for new growth, acting as a slow-motion gardener that shapes the landscape over thousands of years. It is not a destroyer, but a steward of deep time, managing the forest with a timeline that humans can barely comprehend. The idea of one single consciousness, one single biological identity stretching for miles, creates a feeling of unity and wholeness, dissolving the fragmented worries of your day into one large, peaceful existence. You are small compared to this giant, and that is a relief, for it means you do not have to carry the weight of the world. The armillaria is already carrying it for you. The complexity of its genetics reveals a stability that is rare in the natural world, a genome that has remained stable through fires, droughts, and storms, proving that life finds a way to endure.
Imagine the quietude of the Malheur forest at night, the wind whispering through the pines, the stars shining down on the mountains, and below it all, the great fungus resting in the dark. It is the ultimate heavy sleeper, undisturbed by the passing of eras, grounded in the reality of the earth. As you tune into this frequency of ancient calm, your own breathing slows to match the geologic pace of the organism. You feel heavy, rooted and secure, just as the fungus is rooted in the soil. The vastness of the organism is a blanket of safety, covering the land with a living presence that has seen it all and is still here. Let the concept of 2,400 years of silence wash over you, smoothing out the wrinkles of your mind, quieting the noise of the present moment. The armillaria does not plan for tomorrow. It does not regret yesterday. It simply is, existing in a perpetual state of slow expansion and rest. You can feel the rhizomorphs holding the soil together, binding the mountain into a solid, unshakable mass, and you are resting on that solidity. The sleeping giant of Oregon invites you to join its slumber, to sink down into the cool, dark earth, to let your roots go deep, and to find the peace that comes from knowing that you are supported by a life force that is bigger, older, and calmer than anything you have ever known. The night air in the high desert is crisp and clear, but down in the soil it is warm and safe, and that is where we rest, wrapped in the arms of the humongous fungus, drifting into a sleep as deep and as lasting as the history of the earth itself.
From the sleeping giant of the Oregon mountains, we now allow our awareness to dissolve into the spaces between the trees, moving away from the concept of the individual and entering the warm and interconnected world of the community, where a silent conversation has been taking place for millions of years. We are tuning our minds to the frequency of mycorrhizal harmony, a state of biological cooperation that binds the forest together in a web of mutual aid and chemical language. As you visualize the forest floor, imagine that the ground beneath you is not silent, but is humming with the flow of information, a complex system of signal transduction where trees and fungi talk to one another using the vocabulary of chemistry. This is not a language of words or sounds, but a language of molecules, of carbon and nitrogen, of enzymes and hormones flowing through the fungal pipelines that link root to root in a vast underground social network. The science of this connection is known as mutualism, a relationship where both parties benefit, but it goes deeper than simple trade. It is a form of altruism that ensures the survival of the whole. Visualize the tiny tips of the tree roots where the fine root hairs meet the fungal hyphae, wrapping around each other in a gentle embrace known as the heartic net, a microscopic interface where the two organisms become one. It is here, in this intimate space, that the silent trade occurs, a transaction that happens billions of times a day while the rest of the world rushes by. The trees, high in the canopy, have spent their day bathing in the sunlight, using the miracle of photosynthesis to weave carbon dioxide and water into liquid sugars, the high-energy currency of life. Now, as the sun sets and the forest goes to sleep, the trees send this sugar down through their trunks, down into the dark earth, offering it to the fungi as a gift of energy. In return, the fungi, masters of the soil, have been mining the earth for essential nutrients, dissolving rocks to extract phosphorus and nitrogen, which they now pump upwards into the tree roots. This exchange of carbon for nutrients is the heartbeat of the forest, a rhythmic flow of resources that ensures that everyone is fed, that everyone is strong. But the conversation does not stop at trade, for science has revealed that the trees use this fungal network to care for one another. Imagine a mother tree, the oldest and largest tree in the grove, whose roots are connected to hundreds of younger saplings growing in the shade. Through the fungal threads, she can detect which of her seedlings are struggling, and she will send them extra carbon, pumping sugar through the mycelium to feed them until they are tall enough to reach the sun themselves. This is a story of biological kindness, a scientific proof that nature is not always about competition, but often about cooperation and care. The forest is looking out for itself, monitoring the health of every member, and knowing this allows you to relinquish your own need for control. You do not need to worry about the world tonight, for the world is capable of managing itself, capable of sharing and supporting without your intervention. If a tree is attacked by a pest or a disease, it can send a chemical warning signal through the fungal network, a molecular message that alerts its neighbors to raise their defenses, to produce protective enzymes, to prepare for danger before it even arrives. This signal transduction is a wave of information that moves silently through the soil, a ripple of awareness that keeps the forest safe. It is a comforting thought to know that there is a system in place that anticipates needs, that shares resources, that protects the vulnerable. As you listen to this, imagine that you are plugged into this network of harmony, that you are receiving the same signals of safety and support that the trees receive. The isotope studies that scientists use to track these movements show that a dying tree will even dump its remaining resources into the network, bequeathing its carbon to its neighbors in a final act of generosity, ensuring that its energy lives on in the community. This is the ultimate form of recycling, a loop of life that never ends, where nothing is wasted and everything is shared. The chemical language of the trees is a language of abundance, a reassurance that there is enough for everyone, that you do not need to hoard or stress, but simply to trust in the flow. The nitrogen atoms that travel from the fungus to the tree are the building blocks of proteins, the very stuff of life, and they move with a slow, deliberate purpose that matches the slow, deliberate pace of your breathing. The forest is a self-regulating system, a superorganism that breathes and thinks as one. And tonight, you are a part of that organism. You can feel the connections between the trees as golden threads of light in the darkness of the soil, a shimmering web of benevolence that cradles the roots of the world. The stress of the day dissolves in the face of this ancient cooperation, for if the trees can help each other survive the centuries, surely you can survive this night. The science of plant signaling is complex, involving ion channels and electrical impulses that mimic our own neural networks, suggesting that the forest has a mind of its own, a slow, deep, earthen intelligence that is watching over you while you sleep.
There is no chaos here, only the orderly transfer of molecules, the balancing of equations, the settling of accounts in the ledger of the soil. The silent trade is a lullaby of fairness and balance, a promise that if you give, you will receive, that if you rest, you will be restored. Let the image of the carbon sugars flowing down and the nitrogen nutrients flowing up create a mesmerizing vertical rhythm in your mind, a visual mantra that rocks you gently toward sleep. Up and down, give and take. Inhale and exhale. The forest is a family connected by bloodlines of sap and fungus, standing together against the storms, and in the quiet of the night they are whispering to each other, sharing the news of the day, settling in for the long, dark rest. You can hear this whisper in the rustle of the leaves, a sound that is really the echo of the chemical conversation happening deep underground. It is a sound of peace, of unity, of a world that is working perfectly without your help. You are free to let go, free to disconnect from the human network and reconnect with the fungal one, the original social network that asks for nothing but your presence. The harmony of the mycorrhiza is the harmony of the universe, the fundamental truth that we are all connected, all supported, all part of a greater whole. As the chemical signals fade into the background, they leave behind a profound sense of safety, a feeling that you are held in a web of life that will not let you fall. The trees are the guardians, the fungi are the messengers, and you are the guest, invited to rest in the sanctuary of their shared existence. Let the science of this sympathy soothe your nervous system. Let the knowledge of this altruism warm your heart, and let the chemical language of the trees become the silence that carries you into the deepest, most restorative sleep you have ever known.
We gently drift away from the wild, tangled roots of the deep forest now, leaving the cool, damp earth behind to move toward a different kind of warmth, a warmth that feels distinctly human and deeply ancestral, guiding us into the heart of a quiet, sunlit kitchen, or perhaps an ancient bakery where the air is thick with the most comforting scent in the history of the world. We are shifting our focus to a microscopic fungus that has walked hand in hand with humanity for thousands of years, a single-celled organism known to science as Saccharomyces cerevisiae, a name that translates beautifully to the sugar fungus of the beer, but which we know simply as yeast. This tiny, invisible ally is the master of a biological process called anaerobic respiration, a scientific term that sounds complex, but is actually a story of slow, rhythmic breathing without air, a process we call fermentation. Visualize a heavy ceramic bowl sitting on a wooden table, filled with a soft, pale mixture of flour and water, and within this simple dough, billions of these microscopic fungi are waking up from their dormancy, beginning a work that is as old as civilization itself. As you watch the dough in your mind's eye, imagine the yeast cells finding the simple sugars hidden within the grain, consuming them gently and releasing tiny bubbles of carbon dioxide in return.
This is the chemistry of comfort, a reaction that creates the soft, pillowy texture of bread. And as the gas is released, it gets trapped within the elastic network of gluten, pushing the dough upward, causing it to expand slowly, inch by inch, lifting the linen cloth that covers the bowl. There is something incredibly hypnotic about watching dough rise, a movement so slow that it is invisible to the naked eye. Yet if you look away and look back, you see that it has grown, doubled in size, becoming soft and airy and full of life. This slow expansion is a metaphor for your own relaxation, a feeling of your chest rising and falling with the same gentle rhythm, your body becoming heavier and softer as the tension leaves your muscles, replaced by a feeling of warm, expansive peace. The science of fermentation is a quiet science. It makes no noise except for the occasional soft sigh of a bubble breaking the surface, a sound that is the very definition of tranquility. We travel back in time to the banks of the Nile in ancient Egypt or the Fertile Crescent of Mesopotamia, where our ancestors first discovered this magic in clay jars and stone vessels. Imagine the early brewers watching their mixtures of water and grain, seeing the surface begin to foam with a creamy golden froth, a sign that the Saccharomyces was at work, transforming the sweet liquid into something preserving and safe.
This process produces ethanol as well as carbon dioxide, a natural preservation that allowed civilizations to store calories and survive the winters. And knowing this gives you a sense of deep security, a feeling that you are part of a long lineage of survival and comfort. The bubbling of a fermentation vessel is a rhythmic sound, a bloop, pause, bloop, pause, that mimics the beating of a slow heart or the ticking of a grandfather clock, measuring out the time in moments of peace. As you listen to the description of this process, imagine the warmth of the bakery, the heat radiating from the brick oven, wrapping around you like a heavy wool blanket. The smell of baking bread is known to trigger a biological response of safety in the human brain, a signal that the harvest is in, that the work is done, and that there is food enough for everyone. You can smell that scent now, the rich, toasted aroma of the crust, the sweet, yeasty smell of the crumb, filling your senses and grounding you in a place of absolute contentment. The yeast cells do not rush. They work at their own pace, influenced only by the warmth of the room, and they teach us that good things take time, that the transformation from simple ingredients to nourishment cannot be hurried. The carbon dioxide bubbles are like tiny pockets of air, creating a structure that is strong yet yielding, just as your bed is strong yet yielding, supporting the weight of your body while allowing you to sink into it. The chemistry of the yeast is a chemistry of transformation, turning the raw and the potential into the finished and the comforting. And tonight, you are undergoing a similar transformation, moving from the raw state of wakefulness into the finished state of sleep. The anaerobic respiration happens in the dark, deep within the dough or the liquid, a private, internal process that requires no light, just as your sleep happens in the dark, a private restoration of your own energy.
Visualize the golden color of the loaf as it comes out of the oven, the result of the Maillard reaction, where sugars and proteins combine to create flavor and color, a scientific kiss of heat that signifies completion. You're safe in this warm, imaginary kitchen, protected from the cold wind outside, surrounded by the tools of sustenance and the quiet hum of life. The bubbling of the yeast is a whisper from the past, telling you that you are safe, that you are home, that the fires are lit and the pantry is full.
This connection to the domestic history of our species is a powerful sedative, tapping into a genetic memory of comfort that goes back generations. The soft texture of the risen dough is the texture of your dreams tonight, pliable and soft, shaping itself around you, holding you in a warm embrace. Let the science of microbiology lull you to sleep, the knowledge that even the smallest creatures are working to create comfort for you. The yeast settles down when its work is done, becoming dormant once more, resting until it is needed again. And you too can now settle down, your work for the day finished, your responsibilities leavened and baked away. The air in the room is still, the warmth is constant, and the slow, steady rise of the dough has stopped, leaving only a perfect, quiet stillness. You are drifting on the scent of warm bread, floating on the memory of ancient hearths, carried by the gentle chemistry of the Saccharomyces into a place where there is only warmth, only safety, and the deep, quiet fermentation of a long and peaceful sleep.
And now, as we reach the end of our journey through the silent and magnificent kingdom of the fungi, we travel back one last time, drifting far beyond the kitchens of human history, floating past the towering giants of the present day, and settling gently into the deep, golden light of the Cretaceous period, a time some 100 million years ago when the world was lush and green and the air was thick with the resinous scent of ancient conifers. We are here to witness the final and most perfect act of preservation, the creation of a fossil that will sleep forever in a casing of amber, a process that stops time itself and holds a moment of beauty in suspended animation for eternity. Imagine standing in this prehistoric forest where the sunlight filters through the needles of the great araucaria trees, casting dappled shadows on the ferns below. And there, on the bark of a tree, sits a tiny, delicate mushroom, a perfect specimen with its gills open and its cap turned toward the light. High above, a drop of golden resin, thick and warm like honey, begins to weep from the tree, moving with a slowness that defies description, yielding to gravity in a lazy, heavy descent. It is a moment of pure inevitability, a slow-motion event that has no urgency, and as the drop falls, it lands gently upon the mushroom, enveloping it completely in a warm, liquid embrace. The science of this moment is the science of exclusion, for as the resin surrounds the fungus, it pushes out all the air, sealing off the oxygen and preventing the bacteria of decay from ever touching this delicate life again. The mushroom does not die in the traditional sense. Instead, it is translated into a state of permanence, captured in a golden sphere where it will remain perfect, untouched, and unchanged while the continents drift and the oceans rise and fall. As you listen to this, imagine that the sleep you are entering now is like that golden resin, a warm, heavy substance that is slowly pouring over your mind, sealing out the noise of the world, sealing out the worries of the day, and creating a protective barrier that nothing can penetrate. The resin begins to harden, a chemical process known as polymerization, where the molecules link together to form a solid, durable gem. And as it hardens, the silence inside becomes absolute.
We look at these fossils today, peering into the polished stone to see the tiny hyphae, the microscopic spores, and the delicate tissues of the mushroom, perfectly preserved, looking exactly as they did on that warm afternoon in the Cretaceous. It is a miracle of paleontology, a window into a world that is sleeping in amber, and it serves as the ultimate metaphor for your final descent into sleep tonight. You are becoming like that fossil, not in stiffness, but in stillness, a part of the universe that has decided to stop moving, to stop doing, and simply to be. the concept of time loses its meaning inside the amber, for 1,000,000 years is the same as a second, and inside your sleep, the hours of the night will pass in the blink of an eye, a seamless bridge between now and morning. The golden light of the amber fills your vision, a soft, honey-colored glow that warms you from the inside out, making your eyelids feel heavy, so heavy that they cannot open, sealed shut by the gentle weight of relaxation. The science of the universe is watching over you now, just as the layers of sediment watched over the amber, protecting it, cradling it, keeping it safe until it was found. You do not need to hold yourself up any longer, for the resin of sleep is supporting you, filling the spaces around you, conforming to the shape of your body, and holding you in a suspension of perfect comfort. The mushroom in the amber is safe from the wind, safe from the rain, safe from the changing seasons, and you are safe from the demands of tomorrow, safe from the memories of yesterday, suspended in the beautiful golden now. There is a profound peace in the idea of stopping, of hitting the pause button on existence, and allowing the natural preservation of rest to repair your mind and body. The physics of the fossil tell us that nothing is ever truly lost, that even the most fragile things can be kept safe if they are held in the right embrace. And tonight, you were held in the embrace of the night, the most powerful preserver of all. As the resin fully hardens, the world outside fades away completely, leaving only the quiet, the warmth, and the stillness. You are drifting deeper now, sinking into the sediment of dreams, becoming part of the geological history of the Earth, a sleeping giant in your own right. The journey from the Prototaxites to the Mycelial network, from the glowing Foxfire to the floating Spores, has all led to this moment, this final state of rest where everything is connected and everything is still. The narrative of the fungi is a story of life that thrives in the quiet, and you are now thriving in the quiet, your breath slow and shallow, your heart rate calm and steady, your muscles completely relaxed. The amber is clear and pure, a lens through which the stars can shine, but the noise cannot pass, and you are floating in its center, a perfect specimen of peace. Let the image of the golden forest fade into a soft, dark blur. Let the feeling of the heavy resin weigh down your limbs. Let the science of the ancient world lull you into a sleep that is as deep as the bedrock and as old as the sky. The time for thinking is over. The time for doing is past, and the only thing left is the drifting, the sinking, the eternal comfort of the fossilized sleep. You are safe, you are preserved, you are loved by the earth that made you, and as the final curtain of amber closes around your consciousness, you let go of the last thread of awareness and drift, drift, drift into the timeless, silent, and perfect history of the dark.